Thank you all. Very good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining. My name is Lalit, currently trying to survive the heat of hot Dubai. And I'm working with Accenture Song Germany, living in Hamburg from last 10 years. I've worked with Accenture Song as a productivity engineering manager and look after all things quality engineering testing. And I'm also with Accenture Technology Services, quality engineering services, looking after a thought leadership as a thought leader for EMEA region. That's a little bit about me, and I believe if you like my talk, we will talk more about myself a bit later. Today, I'm going to talk about authentic intelligence and why it is very essential for developing artificial intelligence, which is reliable and beyond approximation. What do I mean by that? uh, let me tell you a nice story. Is this picture familiar to you guys? Have you been to Dubai? Anyone? Anyone? I don't know. I don't see reactions or comments, but I assume most of you have been here. So this is a picture from Old Souks of Dubai, which is quite popular and quite an old place, so to speak. Maybe it exists from decades or centuries. I don't know. It's popular for different sorts of old shops, let's say spices, gold, jewelry. Among all of that, it's also popular for one thing, which apparently most of us know what Dubai is known for. It's the fragrances. Let me take you to this old souk of Dubai, where there are artisans who have been creating outstanding, world famous perfumes. All these perfumes are handmade. They cannot be mass produced, they cannot be automated, they cannot be scaled, so to speak. Each drop, every molecule of the fragrance is carefully crafted, carefully mixed. All the ingredients are carefully chosen. And despite all of the time that it takes, sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes it takes months for them to create an outstanding, unique fragrance. Despite that all, it is sought after by many people. It has been um, celebrated as a pride and heritage of Dubai. And this is something that tells us that there is a big difference between building something that is merely efficient, fast, and something that is truly authentic, carefully crafted, and survives the test of time. With that, here is a question. Now that AI is here, and it's probably here from quite many years, but it's just becoming mainstream now, why is that we should care? There are several reasons, particularly for testers, because the testers who are traditionally expected to be the truth finders, information givers, it's very important for us to understand what's really going to happen and what we're going to offer to our customers if we are to implement AI in our day-to-day life. So there are several reasons why we should care because AI is here to stay. It is embedded in our day-to-day life. Major industries are trying to transform with AI. There has been a big investment happening all over the world, all over different industries to leverage AI for improving business efficiency. We see a lot of things are changing already in some of the areas. Governments and regulations are adopting AI. There has been a big international competition going on, so to speak, in AI dominance. There are lots of democracies, big democracies who are trying to innovate and capture the market, so to speak, the industry, and dominate and establish themselves as a very strong uh, authority over AI innovations. AI is reshaping the tech and is likely to change the way we build products. Most of the teams that I have talked to are already exploring, rethinking how they want to integrate AI-based solutions in, doing things differently, improving their efficiency, reducing the time that they typically spend in lots of manual activities, so to speak. So this is the reason why we cannot ignore AI, whether we like it or not. AI is here to stay, and we are most likely compelled to use it, be familiar with it, and make peace with it. But there is something more that I want you to know, and particularly being testers that we have more reasons to really care. And anybody who cares about the impact that software can have on human life, on the user's life, and the kind of contribution we make in the society, all of us have reasons to care. What do I mean by that? So this is something I think a couple of years ago when I was first time interacting with um, I forgot the name of this platform, image generation platform. Okay, never mind. But it was generating, if you prompt it for us to generate the pictures of Indian people, it was generating a lot of pictures like this, which are like an old man in saffron clothing, walnut clothes. I mean, I'm a very, being an Indian guy, I'm quite proud of my heritage of saints and the culture we have. But we also have lots of scientists. We are also known for the doctors and engineers we produce. And we are not just about saffron clothes. We have so many religions and so many faiths that are happily and peacefully practiced in the region. So this bias that I encountered was concerning, and not a lot has changed when we talk about biases in AI. The stories that were there years ago, they are still there, and it's quite an interesting to see how we are going to deal with it. Uh, one personal experience about the conference talk. I was talking to my friend and a very good, well-known automation expert, Bas Diksha. I was asking ChatGPT to recommend me some talks that I could refer to for, I think it was around pipelines, CI/CD pipelines and automated analysis of some failure test cases. And ChatGPT recommended me one talk that Bas had presented in Agile Testing Days. I could not find that talk on Agile Testing Days website or anywhere on the internet. So I asked Bas, hey Bas, can you please give me your presentation link or some recordings if you have in place? I'm very curious to know what you wanted to share, if I can learn from that. Uh, that kind of confused Bas. He said, are you sure? Is this my talk? I said, yes, that's what internet tells me. Bas, being a guy who speaks all around the world, talking about so many topics, he probably thought he or forgot and he checked his archives. After a while, Bas came back and he said, Lalit, I never did a talk with something like this. And with this title, definitely not at result testing nice. So the funny thing, ChatGPT was making things up. It was telling me things that were not there, that never existed. And when I tried to dig it deeper, it was still gaslighting me further. And this tendency of LLMs not to admit they don't know and rather keep on building up new things that don't exist is alarmingly concerning. Uh, this was a story that happened somewhere in May last year, a Truna story. I don't know if you know about it, but a person who is fairly aware of what Truna's products are, he was trying to check some compatibility issues on the Truna's customer support. And apparently he ended up having a conversation with AI bot, and this AI bot kept giving him misleading information, started making things up, started giving it him incorrect information about the compatibility, incorrect solutions. And given how important it is to consider security and other sort of compliances when we are dealing with something like products from Tunas, any kind of mistake, any kind of goof up is uncalled for. Governments rely on Tunas services for their security and data storage. So long story short, this AI bot was making false claims about features that did not exist. It even created fake documentation and references out of nowhere. It was consistently gaslighting the user, and till very end, it never redirected the conversation to real human for intervention and support. And these things can be quite risky if we are not skeptical enough and if we start taking the communication given to us by AI as truth. Why does this happen? It happens because LLMs are trained to be helpful, not truthful. There is hardly any real-time fact checking, and they are designed to avoid saying, I don't know. Just a couple of days back, I think Mira Moses, Thinking Machines, yeah, they published a research and their experiment where they admitted that we need to start making AI systems more transparent, more reliable. And it's an interesting research that you may want to read, where they have explored why models are hallucinating, what could be the possible solutions, and what was the outcome of their research. And all in all, it's very important to understand that these applications that we are talking at large, they are operating with manipulation model of reasoning. We will talk about models of reasoning a bit later. But if the model of reasoning, if the fundamental model of reasoning on which applications are based, if it is manipulative, there is a tendency to come to an agreement which is one-sided. And you will probably not realize that you are getting manipulated. And being testers, if we are getting manipulated, I can hardly think of other gullible users not to fall for any sort of misinformation, and the consequences of that misinformation can be devastating. This is why I want all of you, particularly testers, to really care to understand what AI really is, what it is good at, what it can be helpful for, and where it can fail us, and how to critically think about it. That's where our own intelligence, human authentic intelligence, comes into play. This was another experiment. There is a source I would let you explore it. I believe it is from 2 months ago, July, and there was a very big experiment around 12, 13 AI agents were deployed together to interact with each other, and there have been several concerns raised because it went out of control. And that basically tells us the state of AI. So despite all the hype and all the buzz and all the big noise that's happening, I believe a lot has changed in our industry concerning AI. And at the same time, nothing has changed when it comes to the foundational models and the way they are built, and the philosophy, the architecture, the principles on which they are built. I think that blocks us from getting close to real intelligent and reliable system, because there is a big difference between something that is merely approximating things, that is merely predicting the syntax and matching word to word with probability, and something that has reasonable amount of reasoning, or something that is compelling it to approach. I'm carefully choosing not to use word thinking and rethinking, because the AIs that I have interacted so far, they don't think. Forget about rethinking. So all in all, we have very good reasons to care for, and this is why I often say I have been very vocal about this thing. When I hear anybody saying AI models are hallucinating, I've started to feel very icked by this one, because I don't think they hallucinate. It's actually a manipulation, and that's how it should be called. If the AI models are actually trained not to admit no, if they are trained to constantly coming and giving some possible results without really knowing if it's really making sense, if it is really accurate, if it is close to accurate, for me, it's an intentional manipulation. And calling AI models hallucinate is apparently a very clever way to make us feel some sort of empathy and feel to empathize with machines for making mistakes, the way we are compassionate with our fellow humans and we don't punish them for making mistakes. This sounds like we are compelled to think of machines to be empathetic with them and to be forgiving and ignore and let those mistakes it does pass and slip off. And this concerns me. So whenever I say something is obviously wrong, something is going wrong, I have decided not to call it a hallucination. I'm going to call out it that this model is trying to manipulate me. And when we consciously choose these terms, it compels us to think it compels us to be more aware and more careful of what's really going on. It makes us skeptical about finding things out that are we are able to see and find out what's really happening behind the curtains. So there has been an interesting article I would like you to read that's about different sorts of myths that we have been fed, and some of those are still true. We have been told about you can control and scale AI. It has been there has been a productivity myth, but the results are different. There has been a prompting myth. The shadow prompting is another story. Learning myth, creativity myth, scaling myth. So many myths are still surrounding, and I want testers not to fall for myths, but rather to verify the claims. It's perfectly fine to get excited. I'm also excited about lots of things. But at the same time, we must be skeptical. Mr. Yan said something very interesting. I was reading his interview, and he said that today's LLMs are nearly going to be obsolete. And I think he has very good reasons why he thinks so. And as I was saying before, it's really about the fundamental model and the principles and philosophy on which our current models are built. They don't think, there is no cognition in it. It's simply a probability based, approximation based guessing game, and that's far from reality. So something that merely mimics, that's something that merely sounds similar to intelligence but it's not intelligent. And when we start making decisions, critical decisions based on these kind of things, we are creating not just a technological problem, but the problem we are creating with these kind of things are epistemological too. And that is so dangerous that it has a power, potential to change the way we think about thinking, the way we think about epistemology, the way we think about intelligence. And if we humans let non-human elements to decide intelligence for us, I think we are setting ourselves for very big failure. And these are the things that make me sleepless. And this is why I have been talking about this topic. So you might wonder, so Lalit, thank you, but what are you telling? Should testers give up on AI? I think no. Hell no. AI is quite powerful. And throughout this conference, I'm very sure with different topics that you have been coming across, you're going to get lots of insights on how AI is useful. What are the things you can easily use? What are the information that you can leverage on? How you can make your testing more efficient, faster? How you can automate mundane tasks. There are lots of things that AI can be quite powerful and useful if you know how to use it well. But I want you testers to understand one simple fact. If you are to supersede your companion, which is considered quite intelligent, you have to oversmart and you have to be more intelligent than the intelligent system that you are using as your companion and workplace as a colleague. And it's not an easy task. So what are we gonna do? Let me introduce you something shortly later. But before that, we need to understand the deep nature of testing, because if we don't know what testing is, if for us testing is all about validations and verifications and pattern matching and verifying the asserts, then we are doing something fundamentally wrong. And this is probably why there has been claim in industry, yeah, all testing can be automated. It's anyway just about checking things. It's not. What I mean by that, for me, testing is a knowledge work. It's about finding true knowledge about the systems and product we taste. There are lots of things that go in between. You know, when we are doing an empirical investigation between the system, the people, and the product, and the relationship between them, we are taking intakes, we are observing things, we are checking the product, we are exploring, we are experimenting, we are observing, we are drawing inferences, we are validating those, then we are discussing, we conclude, and then we communicate. From 1 to step 7 and everything else that goes back and forth and in between, I need you to understand that testing is innately human and very, very intellectual activity. The important part of testing happens here in our brain, in our mind, not on the computer. And if we are to rely or incorporate or collaborate with an artificial intelligence systems, we must understand what it really means for us. If we are to outsmart artificial intelligence systems, we must understand what intelligence means for us and how it works and how it might fail. Only and only then we are going to be confident enough, wise enough, smart enough to sit together with our AI companion and make a meaningful contribution to what we are doing today, right? Uh, so I was saying testing is about finding true knowledge. It's easier said than done because the process of seeking knowledge, synthesizing it, and arriving at a conclusion is quite complex. There are so many difficulties. Your sources could be invalid, leading to incorrect knowledge. Your testimony that you get from people, your POs, or anybody who is supposed to know things, all they might give you incorrect information. There could be false comparison. You might be having your own biases and blind beliefs. You could be drawing wrong inferences. There could be perception errors. I call it red, you call it green. So many cognitive biases that we are all raised with in a way, knowingly, unknowingly. Arriving at true knowledge of something requires us to be very self-aware. At the same time, it requires us to be quite aware of the surroundings. And it requires us to be very aware and observant of the interaction between self and the surroundings. And it's not an easy task. Tell me how many of these things today's AI is confidently, reliably dealing with. I believe we humans are still struggling with getting things right for ourselves. And we are intelligent human beings on planet, I believe. Trying to replace or trying to share the load of all these cognitive activities with something that is merely making approximation and matching the patterns is risky. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm saying we need to be really aware what it means and how to help it do things right. That said, there is a way which I found for myself quite working well, and I want you to share this with you. I would like to present Nyaya philosophy. It's a school of thought from ancient Indian uh, literature, scriptures, call it whatever, that talks about, that has built a foundation for modern day epistemology. And while researching Nyaya, I realized that there is so much about thinking about thinking, thinking about errors, logical reasoning, conclusion, interaction, how human brain works, how we make mistakes. All of that can help us become more aware of our intelligence for ourselves. And it also might help us to build more reliable, better informed artificial intelligence systems that are beyond approximation. So what I really mean by that, as I said, it's an Indian school of philosophy, maybe thousands or 2,000 years old, known for its contribution to modern epistemology, theory of logic, theory of knowledge, and quite an interesting. Those who are hungry for knowledge and who are curious about knowing about knowledge, I strongly recommend you to read any literature that is out there. Lots of researches have been made, lots of studies have been made. This has been being taught in my daily many universities that involve judiciary, law, and stuff like that. Quite interesting stuff. And it's certainly going to help you become a better tester, I promise. What I learned from Nyaya, it taught me to understand intelligence. I often ask people if they think they're intelligent, and nobody confidently tells me. Joel, are you on call? I think you are. Are you intelligent, Joel? Do you think you're intelligent?
I know that I'm not intelligent, but I am on the call.
Right. Well, I asked this question to myself, and I admit my understanding of intelligence was quite abstract. I couldn't define it. I only knew its spelling. That's what I can confidently say. I know intelligence, but the more I compared myself to think about what is intelligence, why I think I'm intelligent, or why I think something is intelligent, I cannot define it. I cannot clearly tell, oh, this does it, that, this and that. That's why this makes this thing intelligent. But as I was saying earlier, mere efficiency, speed, doing things like this doesn't make anything intelligent. Intelligence is far complex concept. It's not just about producing results faster and that look very shiny and beautiful, but it's actually a capacity to perceive clearly. That's what true cognition is about. It's our capacity to acquire wisely. The way we acquire knowledge, there are different methods of acquiring knowledge, make a very big difference in how we understand things and what we're understanding. It's the capacity to reason soundly. We need to have logical reasoning. We should be able to separate right from the wrong. It's the capacity to align with our end goal, aligning it with truth and ethical purpose. What's the point of being intelligent if you're not truthful and ethical person? You might be misusing that skill for something devastating. So intelligence is quite complex and quite profound concept in itself, which requires us to be good at so many things. So whenever next time, if you really want to be sure before calling something intelligent, please understand that it's not just about speed. It's not just about scaling. It's way more deeper than all of that. I understood from Nyaya that the way we acquire knowledge makes a very big difference. So these are the methods of knowledge, and this is particularly quite interesting for testers because when we perform different experiments and when we draw inferences based on the observations we make, it's very important for us to also understand what exactly we are doing, right? So intelligence, by definition of Nyaya, is basically a true presentational cognition. And there are different methods. We acquire knowledge and learn about things through perception, through touch, through inferences, by comparing things, by relying on the testimony of experts. These are the valid ways or valid methods of acquiring knowledge. There are also other ways which are called non-valid, which is like an inquiry coming from natural doubt, uh, exploring and identifying and learning about errors, engaging in hypothetical arguments. Get engaged with those arguments in your head or talk to your colleague. There could be something that you learned from your previous experience and it remained with you in your mind, and that memory later on comes and plays devil's advocate, or sometimes it also saves you from making mistakes. So all in all, these are certain ways in which through which we acquire knowledge, and things are possible to go wrong. Either our perception is wrong, inference is wrong. Please come later. Thank you. My apologies. Or please leave it at the door. Thank you. So there are possibilities that we are having a wrong perception, or there is an error in our perception. There is an error in our inference. We are comparing wrong things. All of these things can lead to a problematic, error-prone, incorrect knowledge. And if we are to operate on incorrect knowledge, we are likely to produce incorrect results, and we want to avoid that. This is why we also need to understand that, according to Nyaya, the characteristics of intelligence are: it has memory, it has ability to discern right from wrong, called tarka, viveka, logical reasoning. It has analytical ability, it has intuitive insights. And if we are to really grade our existing systems in place, I doubt if they will really be passing all these characteristics with flying colors. So I believe this helps you put the concept of intelligence in a perspective, and when we think of how we can rethink about systems that we are working with, if they are really intelligent, and what it means to make ourselves more intelligent than those things, we need to really understand what intelligence means for us. That's what I call authentic intelligence. And understanding, the more we understand how we humans and our intelligence and our mind works, the better we are equipped to work with and train and develop something that is supposed to be an intelligent system. There are models of reasoning I was talking about. So the fundamental models of reasoning on which current models of the LLMs are based on, it's a manipulation model where it's about manipulating person's mind so that they believe what you want them to believe. This is exactly what LLMs do when they don't admit they don't know. They keep on giving you news. I'm sorry, I did it wrong. You're absolutely right, blah, blah, blah. Come on, we are in 2025. We have burned enough money and resources and carbon as well, right? So the goal is to move our conversation or model of implementation from manipulation model to erratic model. Erratic model is more about dialectical inquiry, engaging in meaningful debate, questioning back, critically examining the claims, critically examining the observation, calling it, asking questions again and again, going deeper, call it Socratic method of reasoning conversation, whatever you want to call it, but there has to be a dialectical inquiry where we don't take things just for their face value. If ChatGPT is telling you, Lalit, Bas did this, I was very happy to have access to Bas and I could find out, oh, Bas never did that talk. But not everybody is likely to have access to all such information and validate it with the source of truth. It's not possible. So we need to develop ways to really re-examine whatever we are being told, whether it is true, does it make sense? Is it really the way it is showing to be? And there are certain ways to question things back. I particularly use trick heuristic that I learned from Nyaya. If there is more time later on, I will explain you. But you can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, wherever, and we can certainly have more conversations about implementing trick heuristic as a method of dialectical inquiry, be it with your colleagues, with different ways of thinking, or even interacting with AI. I found it to be working quite well. And basically, that's about it. Authentic intelligence requires us to have critical thinking, causal reasoning, and ethical dialogues and decision making. You might be wondering what we can do with all this information. Well, it's what role are we gonna play now that things are out of hands? They are not out of hands. They are here. It's an opportunity. And I believe testers, more than ever, are in the most powerful position in the software delivery or history of software, where they get to make a meaningful impact by understanding how intelligence works and helping teams to build more reliable, more efficient, more useful AI systems, or be intelligent enough not to get manipulated or misled or burn your resources and efficiencies in something that AI is creating, which is not useful, right? So if you know it, understand it better for yourself. I have some examples of how I think we could do things better implementing Nyaya's philosophy and learnings and applying that. Basically, it's about critical thinking, logical reasoning. As I said, it's about ethical conduct, understanding errors, fallacies and interferences. Uh, this is something that I have been experimenting with. There is a possibility to implement Nyaya's syllogism, Nyaya's fundamental ways of acquiring knowledge, methods of knowledge, to improve the context awareness of MCPs. What it basically means, we can enhance the contextual reasoning with Nyaya's logic. We could implement Nyaya's theory of errors to improve the error mitigation by understanding the errors and how they are made. We could dissect and classify the categories of the elements, and it helps MCPs to structure the context better. There could be possibilities of introducing some conflict resolution and also introduce some sort of comparisons to improve the context generalization. Um, if you see on my screen, it's kind of hidden behind this other window, but let me try to move it so I can read it myself. So it's basically, there is an input layer, as I said, where we can have raw data ingestion. There could be dissections, or striping down the context by breaking it down into important objects and striping out the unnecessary things that could create confusions. Reasoning layer, error detection, adaptation. Let me explain you with an example. That's, I think, much better. As you see here, there is an example of, like, show me the cheap Italian restaurant that is now open. This is what I want my application to process. So how we could do it differently than how it is done today. We could validate the raw input as a direct perception. It basically is asking us to show whatever. And then we could use a tagging method to dissect these objects and striping out unnecessary thing. So here, the important part is the material, which is what user, the actor, user and restaurant. Then there is a property which talks about cheap, and it should be Italian. And the action, that karma, that basically means the act is about searching. So the model better focus on these keywords, these elements that it has been striped down, and get rid of, sorry, the rest of the context. There could be a logical reasoning to avoid the conflict situation where it deduces the conclusion and prioritizes prices and Italian instead of open now. So once the price plus cheap price plus Italian is matched, then it can go for whether it is open or closed, or what time is it is from the day. And if there are some kind of errors, it could also already flag. We could introduce that taxonomy. Instead of open now, it could basically fetch some data from real-time API for hours, whatever. There could be an adaptation. What does it mean? We are analyzing. User search cheap Italian and it prefers affordable pizza places if no Italian places exist. So there could be another data which says users who like Italian also clicked on French cafes. So all of these things can be used to train the models for having some fallback, some sort of analogy to make a context relevant uh, decisions. And after that, everything is processed. It kind of gives us the trusted knowledge synthesis, which is about, hey, I written this, blah, blah, blah. And then there is a cafe's French. If not one, then second is this option. I believe trying to systematically implement things like this are most likely going to help us have more reliable outcomes than simply pulling the things from vast set of data, biases, and hoping that this pattern making and approximation will take us there. All it needs us to do things with more consciousness for quality, more consciousness for reliability, more consciousness for uh, not manipulating, admitting when it is not giving the results and trying to rectify it further. Another implementation would be to uh, introduce the theory of error in our MCP. I think in the confidence scoring. So I came across this thing. They call it UQLM. I don't know if it still exists, but it was very interesting when I explored. And according to this concept, the teams apply some sort of error weights, and they try to measure the confidence based on how is the error score. I believe that simply by adding error scoring to something that is randomly out there and which is more like programmatic failure, we can consciously implement Nyaya's theory of errors. We can try to understand what sort of errors are there and assign weight to those errors based on your project context and the business context of your LLM, and try to introduce this detection there, assigning the scores, recalculating the score based on the error that weightage that you have introduced. And then if the score is going wrong, introduce human in the loop. Basically, we review, we retrain, and we resource the LLMs to eliminate the possible biases, to eliminate the things that are beyond just memory loss and the CPU capacity. So to do this well, it is important that we know what kind of errors really exist, what kind of errors are we doing in our cognition, and when we are processing knowledge, whatever we are likely to do wrong, AI models are also likely to do those things wrong. So spend some time on understanding Nyaya's theory of errors, what sort of errors are there. As I showed you on the previous slide, there are so many things that can be possible. There could be misidentification, there could be illusory mistakes in cognition, there could be contextual errors called as viparaya in Sanskrit. There could be your instruments could be faulty, karana dosha, cause effect relationship, memory distortion, smriti bhrama, fallacies in reasoning. It's like basically the flawed logic and analysis error, perception error, perpetual errors, biases and assumptions. A lot of work that affects the way we think, the way we make mistakes, and potential flaws in our cognition. It has been done. What I'm showing you on screen is just tip of the iceberg of what Nyaya says about theory of errors and the theory of uh, fallacies of inferences. There is so much to know, and all of this, if we understand well, it's quite possible to implement in making AI much better. So I have tried to add some examples here. For example, if there is a misidentification, AI application of that understanding could be improving poor image recognition. There are several other examples. Regular data audits can help to eliminate, data-related biases. We could prevent overfitting or improve the recall when there are memory distortions. But to do this all, we really need to know what kind of possibilities of mistakes happening. And this information is particularly useful for testers too, because the more we know where are the mistakes likely to happen, the more we are aware of identifying and actively look for. We cannot rely on accidents to happen and then explore what went wrong. As testers, particularly if you are testing AI applications or using AI applications for testing, I recommend, I rather urge you to educate yourself about all these errors that are likely to happen, and then create your own test strategy, your risk-based strategy to find out where you want to focus and how to help your teams to get better at handling these errors or eliminating those, or maybe introduce some kind of scoring mechanism to make a decision about go, no go. Because if you get it wrong, if people do it wrong, probably reverting back and the devastating effect of those applications could be serious. This is more on confidence scoring. I will let you read this later if you get slides. And final thought, it's very important to know that intelligence cannot exist alone if it is not backed by ethics. And this is what Nyaya also says. It says that it is very important for the humans, to people, to understand that foundation of intelligence is about uh, seeking truth and having ethics. It's like mere commitment to speed and scaling is not enough. We can make moral decisions only if we are committed to seeking truth, using logical reasoning, and avoiding fallacies. Logical reasoning helps us to discern what is right, what is wrong, and that's how it helps us guide the moral behavior. And any kind of mistake, any kind of mischief in transferring the knowledge, transiting the knowledge, transmitting the knowledge, if it is not transparent, if it is not honest, if it is not responsible, it's basically an ethical violation. And I believe the way the AI models, LLMs in particular, that I have worked with, they are not transparent. They absolutely do not take responsibility for admitting mistakes. And honesty is absolutely not seen. So yes, I call it, we do have problems with ethics when we talk about AI. And it's very important to make this thinking and these characteristics as part of our philosophy, our way of working, and our ability to see things and evaluate them when we are testing AI systems. I'm gonna check whether this things is transparent enough. Does it really tell me how it works? Is it honest? Is it telling I don't know? Is it taking responsibility for, okay, I will come back to you, or you know, trying to debug and trying to self-fill, or trying to maybe disengage that feature because it's not ready for users. Lots of possibilities, but intelligence alone cannot exist. At least we cannot call it intelligence if it is not backed by ethics and responsible behavior. And that, for you, my friend, also warrants us to be comfortable with dialectical inquiry. It means arriving at truth with ethical debate. Let's be open. Let's be open to have healthy debate between among ourselves. Let's be open to, let's train our conversational AI models or whatever modes of communication we are using them, to be open for inquiry, to be open for feedback, to be open for questioning back, going back to source. Because if we are all about manipulating the user, there is no scope for ethical debate. And if there is no scope for ethical debate, there is no transparency. If there is no transparency, honesty, responsibility, there is no guidance on moral behavior. And if there is no moral behavior, we are only going to produce systems that are maybe faster, efficient, and scaling fast, but they are not ethical, they are not intelligence. So I would rather call today's AI not artificial intelligence, but more like synthetic intelligence, which is far, far, far away from authentic human intelligence, but this is also an opportunity for us testers to make it more useful, more reliable, more ethical, and then we all will be living happily and ever after. Let me take you back to this beautiful place again in Dubai. The artisans of Dubai who make the perfumes, as I studied them, they did not just preserve their formula for perfumes, but they basically preserved a tradition, a principle which says it's not just about what we make, it's also about knowing how we make things matters. And we are today standing next to machines which can mimic us, which can analyze, which can interpolate, they can do lots of things. But fundamental question is, can they represent the depths of humanity and really serve a purpose for us? Because intelligence that ignores authenticity, it becomes a noise. But intelligence that is grounded in authenticity becomes trust. And with this message, I would like to open this conference so you get lots of insights, lots of understanding, lots of practical insights from my fellow experts on the presentations and the program. And you use that knowledge, develop authentic intelligence to build more trust in the world out there, because we have had enough noise in the world. We need to start building trust. Thank you so much for your time. Lalit was here, and it will be and will be there on LinkedIn. Whenever you want me to connect with, I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.